All right, so that debate, major L for America, but the show must go on, right? So let's talk about the debate a little bit. I told you guys I was coming back with a part 2, and I never lie. Sometimes. So I definitely want to get into some things that they spoke about. Now, honestly, they did not give us a whole bunch to work with, but we're bosses, so we're going to work with what we have, okay? So make sure you keep it locked for all that and more. It's Crystal with the Cash Compass. All right, welcome back. I am here to teach you all the things that you should have learned in school about money, but for whatever reason, they forgot to mention it. Please be sure to subscribe because we talk about everything from personal finance to invest into the economy. Let's get into it. All right, now I want to really stress the importance of looking into these videos. If you guys are people who vote, like I said before in my previous video, which I'm going to link up here. If you didn't check that out, definitely consider watching that first or second. It doesn't really matter. Do what you want, right? It's a free country. At least that's what they tell us. But I do think it's really important to get into these things and not just say, you know, I vote or I don't vote. Like, if you really want to make a difference, you want to get well educated. You don't want to just kind of tell people, oh, you should vote because it's a patriotic thing to do. No, you should come, you know, loaded with some facts, loaded with some arguments that can kind of really stress your case. I think a lot of times people just vote based on personalities, like how charismatic the president is. And I think a lot of people think one person is going to just kind of change their whole world, which, you know, that's not reality. Unfortunately, you got to help yourselves. But in the event that you do want to participate, you should be educated. Okay. All right. Now, I think it's interesting because they didn't really say much of anything. I'm actually really happy that I watched it afterwards on YouTube at 2x speed because I saved a lot of time, right? But basically, they didn't get into the nitty gritty. How are these things going to get funded? What's going to be taxed more? You know, it was just like, we need a plan. Right. Can anyone tell me the plan? Anybody? Healthcare was one of the first topics that they actually talked about. And it was more like, hey, I don't like Obamacare. Hey, I do like Obamacare. Okay, obviously that's going to be a huge issue going forward because we have COVID, you know, it's COVID. So we already spent a lot on healthcare. I actually went into great detail in this video up here about the government and our budget and, you know, how much we spend on different things. So definitely check that out. But we spend the most by a long shot on healthcare. And that was actually pre-COVID. So can you imagine what we're going to have to actually spend now between, you know, actually arming our hospitals with the proper PPE and then having great healthcare for these people. So it's very important. But again, they didn't go into much detail. It was pretty disappointing that they didn't really have any well thought out plans. I mean, let me know in the comments if Obamacare was actually beneficial to you guys. Only thing I really remember from Obamacare was that I had to pay penalties for not having health insurance. I was in college. Like, I didn't even have a job that offered that, so it was annoying, you know. But if you've had a positive experience with Obamacare, definitely let us know in the comments. If you're kind of like indifferent, no matter what, your job provides you healthcare, then let me know that too, because it's really important to see, you know, the need for this, right? I've actually seen some videos where people were saying they actually end up spending more money with their health insurance than if they didn't have health insurance. So healthcare needs reform, but I don't know if it should be a privatized thing or it should be a government thing, because it seems like everything the government puts their hands on somehow ends up going to crap. And on the topic of healthcare, of course, COVID was a huge concern, and a lot of people go back and forth between whether we should have opened the economy up fully or we shouldn't have. Do you guys think that we opened up the economy too soon or not soon enough? On one hand, I do understand that, you know, in the beginning, everybody was scared. We didn't really know what to expect. But now that we are, you know, 7 months in almost, what do you think should change? Should we be focusing only on people who are higher risk, people who have pre-existing conditions, people who are older, and open up the economy for the rest of the world? Or do you feel like, no, because those people might expose people who are high risk, so we just keep everything closed? I definitely want to hear from you guys. I'm more along the lines of you are going to kill people either way, because if you're not giving them the economy for them to actually make their jobs and actually make food, well, then they're going to get exposed to the virus, right? Because like stress is a silent killer. So people who are going to be struggling because they can't pay their bills, unemployment is not being as responsive as they need them to be, you know, it's honestly a hard call. And it's funny because a lot of people want to bash Trump for opening up the economy, but it's like, you know, I don't know if it's the people who are working from home saying that or people who actually lost their job saying that, because I know for me, I worked from home this whole entire time, and it didn't really make much of a difference for me, but I can imagine if I was somebody who depended on a service job, who I had to actually go into my job and that job was closed down. Yeah, I would want the economy open. I understand people are going to be dying, but I want to take care of my family too, So it's tough. And, one thing that Biden kind of mentioned was, back in 2008, like us under the Obama administration, we picked this economy up from the ground up and we took it as a recession and we made it this great country. Please understand, and I don't want anyone to get offended by this. Honestly, do the research yourself. Watch my videos. I've talked about this to a point of nauseum. The economy was not doing good before Trump came into office, okay? If anything, the economy actually officially broke once the 2008 crisis actually came, because then we kind of introduced this whole idea of the Federal Reserve having to be a, false demand. And I don't want to get too technical, but I do want to show you something. Okay, so what you're looking at right now is the Federal Reserve's assets. And if I've already lost you, please watch the videos on my channel about the economy. It will get you right up to speed, okay? But what you need to know is that you can see here, okay? Pretty much quiet from 2002. They haven't been buying anything, right? The Federal Reserve was pretty much quiet, kept it pretty flat. All of a sudden, 2008 crisis comes and boom, shot up, okay? Ever since 2008, we have not been able to get this balance sheet down. What does that mean? That basically means that if we did not have the Federal Reserve in there taking on all this government debt, buying it up, providing that kind of demand, this fake demand for our debt, I don't know where we would be, but it wouldn't be anywhere pretty, okay? I can guarantee you that. Well, maybe we would have been out of it by now if we actually let things correct and go back to fair value as they should have been. But we have a lot of manipulation in this government to keep things afloat. And a lot of people tend to not associate success with having to depend on somebody else, right? Like if you were super successful, you had a nice big house, you had a nice big car, but you had to ask your mom for all that money to buy these things, would you consider yourself successful? Maybe successful as finessing your mother, right? But not necessarily self-made. And that's exactly how the economy is, in my eyes at least, because we have to have the Federal Reserve coming in and getting up all that government debt. There's nobody else who wants it, right? No one is willing to kind of lend that money to the United States. And when I say no, I'm being a little bit dramatic. Like obviously there's still buyers, but not to the extent that we actually need it, right? So there's not enough people to actually get us into debt. So they have to have the Federal Reserve come in and get it. Or to get those trash assets from those mortgage-backed securities. Again, I have talked about this on my channel. I will link something up here that goes into detail about that. But basically, the economy wasn't, all rainbows and hearts, right? Like we had to have somebody come in here and basically lend a helping hand, and we still need it. As you can see, look back down here. They tried to kind of wean off, and what happened? September, a lot of people don't really notice because people don't really care enough. In September, this is when things really started to crack because I don't want to get too complicated, but basically interest rates in the repo market shot up to 10%. And that is a big deal because interest rates were at rock bottom level. So to go from like maybe 2 or 3% to 10% is a very, very big deal. And ever since then, we've had to really up the ante in this Federal Reserve assets, right? We had to really purchase a whole bunch more assets and really help the economy float. I hope I didn't lose you. If you have any questions and if you want me to make another video all on that, I absolutely can. So let me know. So I said all that to say, I wouldn't consider what they did 100% successful in the sense that we had to actually depend on the Federal Reserve, right? We couldn't do this on our own. He also made the comment that, we don't have manufacturing jobs and the manufacturing grew under Obama, which is true. Manufacturing absolutely did grow under Obama and it continued to grow under Trump too. But relative to the 2000s, no, we're actually doing bad, okay? Manufacturing jobs have gone down by 30% since 2000. So you might be making, kind of progress, but it's nothing compared to what we used to have before both of those people were involved, okay? So another thing that was like, okay, you might say that it might sound good, but relative to what we used to be, we're not there yet, okay? So if you want to really impress me, say we're going to get the manufacturing jobs back up to 2000 levels, okay? Because that's when we really had manufacturing at least better than it is now. Biden says he wants to kind of increase our infrastructure. He wants to add 500 electric charging stations for these cars, and that's going to bring a whole bunch of jobs into the economy. They kept on pressing him, asking him, how are we going to fund this? And he kind of just politely finessed his way around that answer, okay? He didn't answer it at all. And let me tell you, they're going to pay for it by getting into debt. It doesn't really matter which party you pick. Honestly, if you pick either one, you're on the wrong side, in my opinion. But Republicans and Democrats are both going to get us into more debt. If you look at our debt clock, I mean, honestly, you can't even fathom how much debt we're in because I've never seen $26 trillion in my life. I couldn't even imagine what you can buy with that. You know, it's so much debt, and we always run deficits, okay? When you have people like that running the country, how can we expect them to make sound decisions with our money when they can't even maintain a budget for themselves, right? They're telling us, get out of debt, make sure you're saving. But then they're doing the exact opposite, all right? It doesn't really matter. Only thing is going to matter is how we get into more debt, right? So maybe the Republicans will cut taxes, all right? Which means they have to borrow some more money to make up for that tax revenue. Or if you're the Democrats, maybe they'll just give us a whole bunch of more entitlement, right? Giving us more stimulus checks, more everything, and just get us into debt that way by giving us more entitlement. So it's just kind of like, which way would you rather us get into more debt? Not necessarily have a thriving economy, but let's just pile debt on. What they never seem to let us know is that we are in a debt crisis. They're literally telling us to just ignore the debt. But at an individual level, we wouldn't be able to do that, right? Because it would be big trouble. Eventually, your debt would catch up to you. And I don't think that America's any different. And I think this is something that we need to actually really raise awareness to and really put the pressure on to figure out how we're going to get out of this. I don't know that it's really mathematically possible to get out of it, but at least if we're going to address it and make sure we're doing the right thing to make better decisions in our money making. I mean, there's no reason why we're spending $1 trillion more than we budgeted, okay? That it doesn't make any sense. They tell you to vote because it's patriotic, because you have the right to and you should exercise that right, but they don't let us know what's going on with our tax dollars once we get somebody into office. You know, if you want to be transparent, why don't you let us know exactly where our money is going? Why don't you make it clear that 60% of our federal income is going towards war, right? In the military. Why not let us know that only 3% of what they expend goes into the schools, right? And it's actually worse in 2018. So why not bring awareness to those things? If they really care about our well-being, they would really make those things very aware. They would be more transparent and let us know what is going on with our money and how they're going to actually reallocate our funds better to actually help people, as opposed to just kind of cherry picking who is going to benefit. Trump also said that the stock market creates jobs, and while there is a correlation, yes, when the stock market is going up, we do see lower levels of unemployment, but it's kind of like, is it the chicken or the egg? Like, which one came first, right? Because the stock market in and of itself just going high doesn't necessarily mean we're going to have jobs all of a sudden. I mean, look at it right now. Stock market did a complete V-shaped recovery, the only V-shaped recovery we're going to see, okay? But unemployment is still skyrocketing, and we're still getting almost 1 million people filing for unemployment every single week. So that right there tells you not necessarily having a high stock market necessarily equals low unemployment, okay? So I think when people are employed, of course, they have more money. A lot of people who are employed, at least I think 1 out of 3 people will have their money in a 401k. So yeah, if people have more jobs, the stock market does go up, but I don't want people to confuse the stock market with the real economy. They're going in 2 separate directions right now, okay? Just forget about the stock market, because the stock market is heavily manipulated and it's in its own little world somewhere. I don't think it necessarily creates jobs. What I do know with a high level of certainty is that it does create bigger bonuses for the higher ups, right? The C-suites, the CEO, COO. Those people get very healthy bonuses, but I don't know that it necessarily translates into every average American. And that's something that we should be raising awareness to also. But it was real quiet. They talked about people's sons. They talked about everything but the main issues. I mean, they should have had me up there asking questions. All in all, it would be really nice to have people who could meet somewhere in the middle, right? I think there's so much division going on. And again, I don't want to sound like a hippie, but it's so easy to take over people when they are divided. When we are united, we can definitely conquer all, okay? When we're divided, it's very easy for us to get caught up in the minutia and really ignore the bigger problems. If we had parties that are actually like, you know what? There is some truth to what you're saying, but here's my approach. Like, we can't even have a civil argument, or not argument. We can't even have a civil discussion because it's getting below the belt, calling people morons, bringing up their college, classes. I mean, listen, that's not necessary. And it was very, very tragic watching that. I just hope that we can do better. And I hope that we as a people can get more educated about these things so we can actually raise awareness, because we see how powerful social media can be. And if we're bringing more attention to these things that are actually more important, we can get some real changes happening, okay? But that will do it. If you like this video, then please like this video and share it with your friends. And if you have anything else going on, you know what to do. Go ahead and binge watch me. And until next time, keep your money up.